Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. So today I'm continuing with the Argos expedition. Now this game was sent to me from my suit from the Game Czar, who used to play this game when he was a kid and he really enjoyed it. And he was looking for a review online and couldn't really find one. So he decided to send it to me to ask me to try the game out and give my input on it. And so I did a first video on it where I actually did the unboxing of it. Because there's a lot of stuff in here, a lot of things going on. And so, yeah, so I did that first video, and I've spent a little bit of time playing the game, trying to read the manual as much as I could, trying to understand. There's quite a bit going on in this game. There's quite a lot to it. So I'm going to try and show as much as I can, try and kind of go over the game as much as I can, and show off parts of the game. Obviously, there's a lot more to what I can actually show. So, mainly because it does require multiple players. Now, the other thing is, it does come with 2 discs, so I did have to figure out in the beginning which disc to start off with. I even looked in the manual. If you read it, it actually says at the top there, Artifact disc, Mission disc. I'm like, so which one do I put in? I assumed it was Mission, and so when I pulled it out, sure enough, there's a little sticker on the bottom there, and it says to boot the disc, load CBS, 8, press return, and then hit run. So I figured that must be telling me that that's the first one. The Artifact disc doesn't have that. So that was my only visual clue. It wasn't in the manual or anything. So I was right. I put it in, the mission disc, booted up, and then you have to switch to the Artifact disc. Anyways, let's get the game going and take a look at the Argos expedition. Okay, so we got a nice colorful opening screen. The CBS software presents the Argos expedition. And it got what looks like probably some of the artifacts in the game. I think that looks like a boat. Wish my monitor was a little bit more clear. That's the problem with these older monitors. Well, this is more of a TV, but the old CRT TVs. So at this point, it's going to want me to switch the disc. So remove the game disc, insert the artifact disc, which is pretty normal for a lot of these games that had extra discs. Alright, so we're going to hit return to continue. So here's where you get the options. Alright, so this game is typically a 2 to 4 player game, which is a problem for me because I'm just by myself here. So I'm going to try to play 2 players at the same time. I could not possibly do 3 or 4. So I'm going to hit the 2. Press return to continue. The crew member who will use the keyboard. Now here's where the game gets interesting. Because they had to come up with a way for multiplayers to play kind of at the same time. It's not just as simple as pass the controller to your opponent, or each player has a separate kind of controller, because the Commodore 64 only has 2 joystick ports. So they made one player be on the keyboard, one player be on the joystick, and then to do the 3 and 4, they actually have you plug the paddle controllers, which come as 2 controllers connected into one cord, which is pretty innovative. Let's see here. So I'm going to call this guy Joe. You got to put in a name for your guy. And hit the controller button. So in this case, the keyboard's controller button is the spacebar. And the crew member who will use the joystick. Blow. B-L-O-W. Joe Blow. There we go. Now I have to use the this thing, the joystick. So you'll see I have to use 2 things at the same time. I mean, there's a few games that are like that. It's hard when you have to do 2 things at the exact same time. So choosing your mission level, you got basic, advanced, and expert. Now I had to look into this to understand what the differences was, and it's actually, you know, it makes sense. So the basic mission, you're pretty much just going and searching for the artifacts. That's what this game is all about. You're going into space and you're looking for artifacts. The advanced one, though, is each crew member gets a secret mission or a secret goal. And then the expert is the crew members have 2 secret goals each, as well as a group mission. So there's a lot more going on. So I'm going to choose the basic because this is where the cards would come in if I was going into the advanced mode. And I showed this off in my first video. It came with a deck of cards, and I was wondering what the deck of cards was for. And that's what it's for. You would draw your card, and you wouldn't show your opponent. So you would have your own secret goal in mind. So this is taking the game kind of outside of the computer, and using cards to actually make the game more interactive with the players. So, because there's no way they could have done it on the screen without saying everybody shut your eyes or something like that. That would be silly. So that's where the cards come in, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to choose the basic, because that's just going to be easier for me to show off the game. And I'm going to hit that, and now you got short game, medium game, long game. It actually says it in here. The short game is 45 minutes, the medium game is 90 minutes, and the long game is 180 minutes. So that's a long time playing a game. Well, not to today's standards, but I guess back then, with 3 to 4 people potentially playing it. And if this is a learning game, you would be doing this in school possibly even. So, yeah, we're going to hit 1 for the short game. Hit enter. So the Argos expedition. In the early years of the interstellar travel, Earth's brave explorers discovered the remains of an alien culture. Eons old, incredibly complex human progress leapt forward at an astonishing rate as the secrets of the alien artifacts were brought back from the stars. Hit return to continue. You have been selected as the most bad screen qualified team to rate the next chapter in this exciting saga. Yeah, the letters are a little blurry for me, so you have to excuse my terrible reading. So you got message from mission control. Crew members, your work is in the ship's specialty equipped artifact chamber is critical to the success of this mission. You'll be rewarded for your work with the royalty shares and gotta keep it in return. In addition, each of you will receive an advance of 500 credits and a salary of 50 credits. Credits buy tests in the artifact chamber, so spend wisely. So when you catch an artifact, you gotta test the artifact. And that costs money. So, alien artifacts have been sighted in space. We believe that these artifacts will advance your understanding of this alien culture and contribute to the human knowledge. Stand by while your mission loads. Loading was a common thing again, with especially disc-based games like this. Constant loading. Okay, so here we are at the point where you are told what you're looking for. So it's Hazer and Rosette. I guess they have all just weird names for these artifacts. So the concept is you have to find these artifacts within the space region and bring them back to your mission control. So I guess you would normally write that down. I'm not going to bother, but let's just continue on, shall we? Okay, so here's our main screen. So this is our artifact map. What this tells me is, and this is where it gets tricky with this monitor because my colors are kind of awkward. But you have your gauge over here. This is the level of space that it works in. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 depths going inward into space essentially. So it tries to be more of a three-dimensional thing and not just 2D. So not only is there a certain distance between your mothership and trying to get to the artifact, but there's also a depth involved. So you got to keep that in mind. So right now, the arrow is pointing to the green, which is here. And again, if my monitor was better, or my TV, I should say, was better, it would probably be, you'd see that was green. So if I want to go to, say, C, I have to look at the color, correspond it with there, and I'll see what depth it's at to get to that level of C. A little confusing, but once you get the hang of it. And down here we have a little bit of a legend, and it tells you all of A through J, all the different ship's energy it's going to require you to get there. So I have an energy level of 15,000. So if I wanted to go to B, it's going to cost me 2,560, I think that's an 8, or 0. 2,560 just to get to that letter. And it tells you here, choose an artifact location. So each of these letters is a potential location where an artifact is sitting, and you need to go to that level, you go to that artifact area, and search for it. So, and it also gets interesting here too, because not only do you have to select it from the keyboard, but you also have to have each player agree that that's where you're going to go. So if I say I want to go to the F, I hit F on the keyboard, at least the keyboard player would hit F, and they would say, yeah, I want to go here, hit my space bar, but then the other player has to actually hit the button. And that's where you agree to go. So, warp drive engaged. Let's see if there's any hazards. There's a lot of hazards in this game. This is your life source. Actually, there's a lot of different meters on this in this game. Oh, we're in the wormhole. Oh. So now you can see the ship's level is there in the dark blue. It's hard to see it on the screen, I'm sure. Plus, your ship is glowing dark blue. If I stand back, I can kind of see the colors a little bit better, but I'm literally right in front of the TV here. So a lot of these colors are blending together for me. But I can see that that's like A is kind of like that light yellow over there. I can see that H is kind of that purple. So it kind of gives you that depth. Down here is your mothership, essentially, or mission control, I should say. It's a little dot. You only have to go back to mission control when you actually find the artifacts that you're looking for. So if I go to H, or sorry, I'm going to go to D. D is going to cost me, let's see, 640 of the ship's energy to get to D. So let's do that. We go through space. Lots of different hazards you can run into. Each hazard has to be completed differently, and it requires both players to actually simultaneously do things. One on the keyboard, one on the joystick. Joystick, say, moving the either the ship or something around the screen, whereas the keyboard has to push buttons to match tones and stuff. So we're here at the we found an artifact, so we're going to launch our probe. I have to try and match that tone. There we go. So what was happening there was the artifact itself was emitting a tone. And the keyboard player, Joe, has to push buttons from 1 to 9, which each have a different sound tone. So it starts off with 1 being the lowest sound, and then all the way up to 9 being the highest sound. And you have to match whatever the tone is. So you have to listen carefully at what the tone is coming from the artifact and match it on the keyboard. And then the joystick player has to keep that probe over top of the artifact. This is why I say you have to work together. So it was a little bit tricky. I'm kind of balancing between the two, but I managed to actually pull it off. So we got into here. So you got that artifact. This is Rosette. So this is the one that we're trying to find, which is cool. So we're going to keep that. There's a burn value. Now, if you don't want the artifact, if you hate the artifact, you don't want it, it's not part of your mission. You're not playing the advanced mission where you have these cards that give you a secret artifact. You might not want to burn that artifact. Now, to burn it, you simply just turn it into energy, and then it goes into your ship's energy. And again, this is where it could get complicated, because if you're playing with other people and you're doing a secret mission and they all want to burn it because they don't want that, you're going to have to kind of try and convince them that you want to keep it. And then they're going to know that that's probably something you're trying to find. But to burn it, you also have to get everybody's consent. So it's a little bit of a, you all have to work together to get in there. So these are the tests. You got the materials, the 19 input. So gives you a lot of stats down here. Again, there's your ship's energy, and then you got a bunch of options down here. You can view your next artifact. I only have one so far. You can review the results, burn it, bid for the rights to test. So each player has the ability to test this artifact, and they will be the player that claims the artifact. So because I'm only playing by myself, it doesn't really matter. But anyways, yeah, so that would be primarily what you're doing there. So So we can go back out into space. So we're back at that depth here of the dark blue. And I think I'm going to try and go to G. Let's go to G. And then to go to G, I have to look down here. It's going to cost me 1,408. That's fine with me. Let's get going. Nothing really you could do here. It's more for show. You can't really steer. Almost like it's an autopilot. You just gotta hope you don't hit a hazard. If you hit a hazard, like I said, you have to work together. I'm sure if I can get enough footage, I can show some clips of some of the hazards. Oh, here's one. So this one, I believe you have to work together. This is tough because, oh, the joystick moves the blue line and the keyboard moves the red line. And you have to, this is tricky for me because I'm kind of doing two things at once here. I keep wanting to move the joystick. Whoa. Oh dear. Keep wanting to move the joystick left and right, but it's only going up and down. Come on, get down here. Oh! Quite funky graphics they got going on. So I would have lost some energy because I got hit by these asteroids essentially smacking into the ship. It would have been a lot easier if somebody else was here actually controlling it. But even then it would be different. You know, it would be different to try and work together and, you know, I'll go down, you go left. Alright, so we found another artifact. Let's see if I can launch the probe. It's got a high-pitched tone, so that's probably going to be around 7-8 on the keyboard. And it keeps warping around, which makes it even trickier to keep that joystick stationary while I toggle the sounds between the keyboard. Oh, got it. Now it's the same one, the rosette stone. So now I think I got two of them. Yeah. So I got two of them. It's got different test results. And so I can burn this one because I already have it. So I'm going to burn it. So 1253. So burn the artifact. I'm going to hit 3 on the keyboard. Or sorry, I'm going to move it down. This is actually done by the joystick. And all players hit buttons to confirm. Let's start now. There we go. It's burning the artifact. You can see it's blinking. It's about to crush up. So I guess they give you options to find these, more than one of the artifact anyways. So if your team does blow up one of your artifacts, I guess you have a chance of getting another one. So now I have more energy back, ship's energy. Keep in mind too, I'm on a timer game, so I selected the short game, then there was the medium, and then there's the long game. So the longer it takes for you to go through these steps, your timer is counting down, and eventually the game just comes to an end. And then it tells you, you know, where you're at, your scores, everybody's scores, everybody's energy, their shares, their credits. So I'm going to go back. So I hit F3 to go back to this artifact map. I'm still in that level. So let's see what happens if I go to C. So you get to C. It's going to cost me 2,176 energy. And I only have 8,253. Well, let's see. Warp drive engaged. Obviously this is going to be longer of a trip, so it takes more time to get there, which I guess is more chances of running into hazards the further you get away. Now pretty much the hazards just make you lose things like energy and stuff. It doesn't kill you. You don't you know, lose the game. Gravity warp. I think I have to get into the center of that gravity warp using the keys again. So I got that little plus sign. I gotta kind of stay in the center of that gravity warp. It's kind of tossing the ship all over the place. And it didn't. I think I just got plotted off course. Crazy. Again, this is very hard. I mean, I'm literally holding the joystick with one hand like this, hitting the button with my finger, and then I have my other hand on the keyboard. Not an easy thing to do. So we found the probe, or we found the artifact, I should say, so I'm going to set out the probe. It's launched. It's kind of a lower tone, so let's see if I can just get the probe over top. No. Now it's changed to a higher tone, so I didn't get it. It's a little confusing to match the tone. There's our time, 13 minutes. 14 minutes, I guess, telling you how much time you've spent in this game. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, you go through this whole thing, you go through each one, you find each letter. After you find an artifact, the letter disappears, so you don't keep going back to the same location. You got to worry about your ship's depth, and the reason is because when you find your artifacts, you got to get back to this area here, which is your mission control, but you'll have to be at the green, because that's where the mission control is. It's in the green. So you'll have to work your way back up to get there. Kind of interesting. So, yeah, I mean, that is pretty much the game. I mean, the majority of what you saw on the screen is what you would run into while playing the game. Now, like I said, it does have different variants of the game. Your mission levels, which it does explain to you in detail. I kind of went over it a little bit, but, you know, the basic being, like, the crew members receive the mission, like, the artifacts only, and then you get into the cards. So then each player would take a card, and they have a secret mission, which sounds really interesting to me. I really like that aspect of it. I really like being able to have some secret information that the other players of the game that you're playing with don't know about. Kind of interesting. You don't really get that too often in video games. The game itself, I mean, like I said, I had some problems because it's just me. This game really was developed to be played multiplayer at the same time. And I'm used to, like, I've played a lot of two-player games with friends and stuff. Most of the time, it's player one first, you play, you die, player two goes on. So playing a game like this, where it's actually multiplayer, especially during this time frame, I mean, we're talking about, you know, 84. There wasn't a whole lot of games like that. There was a few, maybe, but I didn't play any of those type of games when I was younger. Most of the time, it was player one, player two, player three, all playing at different times during the game. The other thing was figuring out how to beat those hazards on my own. That was kind of tricky because using the joystick in one hand, using the keyboard in the other was not easy. But I could see where they were going. That made a ton of sense, that depending on the amount of players you have, you're all kind of doing something and you're working together. And that way you never run into a situation where someone's just sitting there waiting for their turn, right? So you're always working together, trying to find these artifacts. You'll have to bid on it. That was another thing I couldn't really do on my own, but you would bid. So you can actually say, I'm going to bid to test this artifact, and if you do test it, you can claim that artifact, and then at the end it counts towards your score. And the hazards themselves, like you saw, I did hit them every once in a while, the gravity warps and stuff like that. And again, it's another opportunity for the players to work together. You can't just have one player deal with that situation, which made it more tricky for me because I was having a hard time controlling both. So you got the meteor hazard, you got the gravity warp, and the wormhole. There was a few other added things in here because it's for the advanced game, like the space sickness. It does get a little bit complicated as they, you know, as you dive deeper into this game. It actually tells you all that stuff. So as far as I can get in there, at least I was able to show the bulk of the game and pretty much how this game operates. Anyways, hope you liked the review of the game. I tried to show as much as possible. tried to explain as much as possible, but like I said, the book, there's just so much in there, hard to remember everything. Even with me having the book with me while I was playing, it was getting tricky. Anyways, leave some comments below. Let me know what you think of the Argos expedition. I'd like to thank the GamesR again for sending this in. I always welcome donations to the show. It just helps add a little bit extra, have some extra stuff to the show. Hope you liked the video. Hope you subscribe to my channel. Talk to you later.